I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with
So what are we going to pay?
funding. Yes. And it's all the stuff, because you never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be.
Gets hit by it.
Correct. So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be.
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So.
The secret Trump-Cohen recording introduced us to a brand new character in Donald Trump's legal sagas. Alan Weisselberg, portrayed in that tape as a player in discussion. I feel like someday I'm going to read portrayed in the movie by, but for now, portrayed in those discussions, talking about a hush money payment to playmate Karen McDougal. The Wall Street Journal today breaking the news that Weisselberg has been subpoenaed to testify before a grand jury in New York in the Michael Cohen criminal case. Bad news for Cohen and perhaps also for Donald Trump because of Weisselberg's resume, as described in the Journal as, quote, for decades, Mr. Weisselberg has served as executive vice president and chief financial officer at the Trump Organization and was once described by a person close to the company as the most senior person in the organization that's not a Trump. After Mr. Trump was elected, he handed control of his financial assets and business interests to his 2 adult sons and Mr. Weisselberg. Joining us now from the Washington Post, national political reporter and moderator of Washington Week, Robert Costa. From the New York Times, political reporter Nick Confessori. Joining us at the table, Charlie Sykes, contributing editor for the Weekly Standard and host of the Daily Standard podcast. Mimi and Jonathan are still here, lucky for us. Let me start with you, Charlie. So I've heard people say today that if Michael Cohen knows where all the bodies are buried, Mr. Weisselberg did the digging. This is someone who knows everything.
Yeah, in Trump world, this has got to be the most terrifying possible scenario when you think about it, that your fixer is flipping on you and that the guy who has all of the financial secrets is flipping on you. So in terms of it, and we've said for some time that the Trump White House recognizes that Michael Cohen, might pose the greatest existential threat to the presidency, even more so than some of the Russian collusion allegations. But now it seems to be weaponized.
Southern District of New York, we talk a lot about the Mueller investigation, but before there was the Mueller investigation, SDNY was sort of the where all the all-stars came to, prosecute the toughest and most important cases. This certainly looks like has the hallmarks of the way the Southern District prosecutes a case like the Cohen case.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a classic Southern District case, frankly. So this isn't going to be new to them. I mean, not even, it's higher profile, but
right.
Been plenty of high
it's
profile.
Just the president's tapes conversation talking about money to a playmate. But other
in a
than
lot
that,
of ways, it's your everyday
it's
thing.
Almost old.
Right? We're so dead inside. Good God. Right? I mean, let's just stop. I know we have commercials to get to. I know we have things, but let's just stop. Let's stop. We are talking about how this is a normal case for the Southern District. No, it's not. This is the president of the United States who has someone with the title fixer, and the fixer and the president have someone who was their financial guy who's now been subpoenaed. There's nothing normal about this.
No, I agree. What I was referring to was a sort of broader skeleton type of case of it's a financial fraud case, it looks like, in a lot of ways.
What cases are similar? Is this how, James Comey writes about how it was like a mob family. Is that the kinds of cases?
Yes. I think it's a combination. And look, most mob cases have a financial aspect because at the end of the day, organized crime is about money as well.
Right,
they just tend to enforce it with violence as opposed to just intimidation that we were just talking about on Twitter. Yeah, the mob doesn't use Twitter. But yes, this reminds me of many mob cases that I and many others did in the Southern District for many years and are still doing. And it in a couple of ways. And one is the Trump-Cohen relationship, which is like, there's no other way to describe it. It is very much like a mafia boss and either his consigliere or even more sort of a soldier or a capo who's so loyal to him that Trump, one, probably trusted him with many, many things, and this man would, quote, take a bullet for him until he won't.
Right.
Because every mob boss is brought down. And really, the families have been decimated for that reason, because their most loyal soldiers and capos turned on them. Because when faced with prison, that's what they do. If I could say one thing, though, about this Weisselberg subpoena, this to me shows the danger to Michael Cohen of what he is not yet doing, which, as far as I know, from an outsider looking in, he is not yet going in and speaking with prosecutors. He's doing this PR campaign. Weisselberg's getting subpoenaed. Cooperation is very much a race. Who's in the door first and who's going to be the most cooperative? Truthfully cooperative, but cooperative. Cohen, should really look at this now and where this is going. We don't
because Weisselberg may know more than him, and Cohen may not be valuable to them anymore. And you only flip if you're viewed as having something helpful that they can't get somewhere else.
You hit the nail on the head.
Let me ask you, Robert Costa, to speak to your paper's fantastic reporting today. Under the headline, "I'm not going to be a punching bag anymore," just picking up on Mimi's point about Michael Cohen's PR campaign. You guys report that inside the White House, Trump raged about the release of his and Cohen's September 2016 conversation about financing the deal with McDougal, a former Playboy model, to sell the rights to her story of an alleged 10-month affair with Trump to American Media Inc., the owner of the National Enquirer, which never published her account. Did he rage because people found out about it, or did he rage because he knows he's in legal trouble because of it?
Talking to White House officials and friends of the president in recent days, you really get a sense that they are outraged at Michael Cohen. They thought he was the ultimate loyalist, someone they could convince to stay put, to not work or cooperate with federal prosecutors at some point in the future, to not be releasing these tapes. And they also are alarmed that he's working with Lanny Davis, a longtime advisor to the Clinton family, both former President Clinton and Secretary of State Clinton. Yet talking to Lanny Davis, he says that Michael Cohen was pushed to this point, that he wanted to stay loyal, but he thinks that Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, has said things that are untrue, and it's time for Cohen to get out there and tell his stories, and he's going to keep telling the story, even if the White House doesn't like it.
Robert Costa, you tweeted something that was so interesting to me and so inside Trump's head, where you spend more time than anyone should have to. But you wrote about how the selection of Lanny Davis itself, a Clinton family loyalist, was like salt in a wound for Donald Trump. Talk about that.
It was, because Lanny Davis was someone who wrote a book about how he believes the election was stolen from Secretary Clinton in 2016 by Russian interference, by different factors. And you see now this White House seeing Davis alongside Michael Cohen. It brings back memories of 2016. It puts the ultimate foe in their mind, the Clintons, with the ultimate loyalist, Michael Cohen. And that's a jarring image for those close to President Trump.
And Nick Conversori, there are some signs of strain at the White House. A big flashpoint yesterday with a reporter getting kicked out of an event. The president hasn't taken any questions since the Cohen tape was released. He usually likes to field at least a few shouted questions or walk up to reporters on the North Lawn or the South Lawn. They are not acting, I guess, in the Jonathan Lemire-inspired post-Helsinki era and the Cohen release of the Cohen tapes. They're not acting like a White House that feels confident about anything.
Look, smart questions and good journalism are a death ray to a White House in trouble, and this is a White House in trouble. If it's a mob movie, it's not The Godfather, it's Johnny Dangerously or Sopranos on the East River. It's a farce. And it's not just that you have Cohen. You know, how many of these mob movies, the plot revolves around the accountant? So now you have the consigliere and the accountant possibly in trouble and flipping. That is terrible news if there are many bones buried at Trump Tower. And if there are bones buried there, these two guys know what it is. So all along we see when the president is under great pressure, he lashes out. I think in this case, look, I think he knows that by taking a swing at CNN, he's going to get all of us in a mood to talk about the media for a couple of days, which is never a good look for us. And we're already stopping talking about Putin. But who can blame us if the accountant is in the crosshairs? I just think they are trying to distract us a bit and do their favorite thing, which is to make us talk about ourselves as if we're really important.
All right, we're going to resist it the way I have to resist donuts every time I walk by. We just wanted to get on the record with all the signs of strain at this White House, and I'm going to blame Lemire for it anyway. So, but I do want to get back to the idea that, you know, every White House deals with the crushing burdens of the job. This White House is dealing with the crushing burdens of the president's own misconduct. Because whatever you think of the fact that Michael Cohen recorded his conversation with Donald Trump, this White House now has to find someone to field questions and to field the legal liabilities that come with a brand new bucket of questions and a brand new line of inquiry, at least public-facing new lines, about the relationship with National Enquirer, whether those amounted to gifts, whether there was collusion, if you will, between the campaign and a media outlet, and whether that outlet was even operating as a media outlet. I think the First Amendment is usually deployed legally to justify publishing a story. I'm not sure if the First Amendment is a defense for killing a story for money. So how does this White House sort of continue to navigate as the legal issues and the investigations seem to multiply?
It is a crushing pressure on the West Wing right now. And it's a West Wing that's also hemorrhaging staff, that has lost people, more departures expected in the coming weeks. They are having great difficulty bringing in qualified replacements, people who want to come into that building right now, knowing all that's going on, knowing that Robert Mueller is watching everything, seeing these new fronts open up seemingly on a daily basis. And yes, this is a White House that has dealt with some external crises. It's dealt with some North Korea. It is dealing, now we're picking a fight with Iran. But so much of this is what the president has brought on it himself, that whether it is his sins from his past life as a celebrity businessman or his conduct in office. And it is driving people around him. He's having trouble keeping good aides with him. He has now surrounded himself with people, more or less yes men who aren't challenging him and who are willing to do his bidding, including, not to dwell on it, but picking on these fights with the media this week when they're clearly looking for a change of conversation.
Are you surprised to see Bill Shine not leaving a mark or doing anything to make any of the problems less glaring? He seems, since he's arrived, all of the weaknesses, all the structural weaknesses of the Trump White House are, if anything, more clear.
Well, everything Jonathan said is true, but also, Donald Trump has two things going for him that he's counting on. Number one, he has succeeded in getting a large portion of the population to distrust the news media. He has immunized himself against a lot of this reporting, and he's going to continue doing that to try to delegitimize the fact-based reporting. That's number one. Number two, he's got a base that, frankly, does not care whether the president lies. They don't care whether he was having an affair with a porn star or with a Playboy model, or that he lied about it, or that he paid money to cover it up. These are two things. These are almost like the superpowers. I mean, his main superpower is complete shamelessness. But those are things that he has counted on, and I think he continues to count on.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.